What are the basics? What are the basics? Please define the basics. Winning is nasty, it's dirty, it's ugly, and the better you get, the more lonely it gets. And you're worried about prospecting? Screw you.
World-class lessons from the real estate industry's top 1%. Empowering agents to think bigger and do more to create life by design. This is Light It Up.
Welcome back to another episode of Light It Up podcast. Our goal is, of course, to empower agents to think bigger and create a life by design. Today, we have an extremely special guest. He needs no introduction, but I'm going to introduce him anyway. Tom is recognized as the #1 educator in real estate. His coaching programs, training products, and live events are all dedicated to helping real estate agents grow a prosperous real estate business while simultaneously balancing their personal lives. He's also sought after and renowned speaker and best-selling author of Life by Design and Mindset, Model, and Marketing. Please welcome Mr. Tom Ferry.
Woo! Thanks, John. Thanks, KIRO. Man, hey, Hector, we got to get a new bio, man.
Came straight off your website with a little bit of Wikipedia and Instagram.
Okay. Did you guys catch, so I have a 23 and 21-year-old son, and they went on Wikipedia and they added some pretty flavorful, funny-ass stuff. So
some wiki cool things.
I don't know if it's my marketing team may have just gone nuts on that. So how are we doing, guys? How's the start of the year?
The year's good, man. We're realizing that, of course, we have to get back to the basics, which a lot of people are saying, but...
What are the basics? What are the basics? Tell me. I'm very confused by that. People tell me all the time, get back to the basics. And I'm like, please define the basics.
What I was always taught was the plan, right? Prospecting, lead follow-up, appointments, negotiation.
Yeah.
Having conversations every day.
So I would make the argument that that is extremely advanced. The basics are like, wake up late, don't go inside your CRM, don't know the stats on the market, figure out what you're going to do for lunch starting around 10:30, 11 o'clock, and mail it in by like 1:30. That's the basics of real estate. There's a reason why it's the rich and the rest in this marketplace, guys. I would just tell everybody, be really clear. If you're having conversations every single day and you're scheduling appointments every single day, you are a badass. You are advanced. It ain't the basics.
Yeah. So in your perspective, Tom, with 500,000 plus coaching calls, right? What do you think is the difference between what makes somebody good and great in this industry with a shifting market that we're in right now?
So I'm going to say this, and please, for the person that doesn't know who I am, just for context. So I've actually done about 70,000 hours of private coaching myself, and then my company does like 500,000 like a year. Yeah. So we talk to a lot of people, we coach a lot of people all over the world, and with all that said, like the market doesn't really matter. The market matters to people that don't have discipline. The market matters to people that don't have skills. And the market really matters to people that don't have focus. Mm-hmm. And if we just start right there and just say the agents that are winning, why are they winning? It's because they're focusing.
Sure.
Right? There's so many distractions in this business. There's 1,000 podcasts I can listen to, Snapchat, Instagram, Facebook, my spouse, my wife wants a puppy, my 21-year-old calls and says, want to meet for drinks. Like there's 1,000 distractions every single day. And when I really dig deep into what makes the most successful people operate at the level that they have, one, they have a very different identity, right? They identify, as you guys do, John, like you guys identify, you can't do your volume, right? KIRO, you can't do the kind of business you guys do without first identifying as someone that does. And we know that our identity ultimately shapes our behaviors, and our behaviors, that's our results, right? Did you kill it or not? Yeah. Did you make the basket or not? Did you set the appointment or not? So the first thing is identity, and the second thing is focus. And I think the biggest challenge that we see every day, because we'll get, call it sub 20,000 inquiries every month, like, hey, I'm interested, what should we do? The vast majority of those people that are coming to us, they're unfocused. And I'm not saying that they're bad people, but we say, so tell me your 3 most important goals for the year. And they go, and they can't very quickly say volume, transactions, units, profit. Yeah. Then they usually don't say scale my trust, know my tribe, build relationships with content, with direct mail, with email, with events. And then if they don't say to me that my third most important goal for this year is to go on X number of listing appointments and Y number of buyer consultations. And if I just build my life in my business around those three things, you do that, you're going to win. But the vast majority of people have never been told that.
Yeah.
Hey, write a plan that you never look at again and, try and figure it out.
Yeah. Tim Ferriss once said that life punishes the vague request and rewards the specific ask. And that's so
one of my favorite quotes by Timmy.
Yeah.
Yep.
And that's one of the things that becomes so valid today. And, I was doing some research in preparation because John called me. He's like, we need to know what we're asking Tom. And NAR came up with a report for like transactions and overall amount of agents that are in the marketplace right now. And just to give a quick overview, in the last 15 to 17 years, 2022 had the lowest per agent count of transactions across the board.
Barely 3, right?
Barely 3.
Like per person productivity?
Yep.
Barely 3 transactions per person.
KIRO, that's a bullshit number though. That's a bullshit number.
Is that because there's double the amount of people who are licensed versus who are actually active?
So I haven't looked at this research in a while, but so the MLSs in the US, I'm sure people listening around the world, the MLSs in the US had a little over 1.6 million agents around June, July of last year. And we know that number's continuing to drop. NAR says, they've got, 1.5, then it was 1.45, and who knows where they're going to finish. Yeah. But the reality is, so I did a pretty extensive research piece about 10 of the biggest MLSs in the US, right? All the big ones you'd imagine: SoCal, Texas, Florida, Ohio, the Virginia, massive MLS there. So here's 2 stats for you. One, it's about 62% of the agents that were active. Now, active means I had a closing in the last 12 months. So we scraped all the non-active agents. That group averaged 2 listings sold. So, some did 1, and at the high, some did 4, but the blended average was 2 listings sold. Then when we looked at the top 6% of the MLS, that group controlled 33% of the market, right? The bottom group, they controlled about 45% of the market, which, for you guys and for your listeners, that's the real competition right now. Like, John, me going up against you, me going up against Jill Biggs, right? That's going to be hard, right? People are going to pick their favorite flavor. The real deal is, how do I get, Aunt Phyllis not to list with her nephew who is 5 cities over, doesn't know the area, but will do it for less commission and will, bag out of obligation to get the listing? How do we truly stand out against that group? And I hope maybe we can get into some of that today. Yeah. But I think that's the big issue. So KIRO, I just think when you look at those stats, it's not that per person productivity. It's actually substantially higher. And when you really look at it, like whether you look at the top 5%, top 10%, top 1%, like in LA County, if you're in the top 1%, you averaged 100 listings sold. If you're in Boston, right, in the greater Boston, Mass, like you're at about 85 listings sold. Yeah. It's a stark contrast. Like all these cliche phrases like it's the rich and the rest, fellas, it is the rich and everybody else.
Yeah, no, you're 100% right. What was surprising to me is that when you look at what was going on in 2008, the amount of transactions and the amount of agents that were active across the board, it was just more or less in terms of like the activities that we do today need to be way more intentional and need to be way more relationship focused instead of transactional, because that's where it's going to make the biggest difference. And you're right now on tour, and we're very grateful that you gave us this time while you're on tour. And you're going through the roadmap tour and the Edge Sales and Marketing. Yep. Part of your roadmap, which you're going to be doing tomorrow, what are you teaching the agents to basically make themselves different from the marketplace to stand out like you were talking about?
So last fall, I have 247 business coaches in like 7 countries. So when I say, hey, let's do some research, let's segment our own clients, like the CEOs of companies, the directors, marketing, like all those people, push them aside. Let's just do people that are doing transactions, teamerages, teams, individual agents with like 5 assistants, like all these different models that we know are available. We ask them, 40 questions, hey, what works, what doesn't, value rank, listings from past clients versus Google versus arbitrage versus agent refer. Just you guys can imagine, just on and on and on and on and on. Yeah. So the opening of my roadmap tour is basically the 5 most important distinctions that we learn from that. right? What were the 5 most important things? And I've already kind of covered one, which was the people that are killing it right now can answer the question, what are your goals? What are you focusing on? And we all know it's 1, 2, 3, too many.
Yeah.
And the second you go beyond 3 goals, it's diluted focus creates diluted results. Right? KIRO, you were kind of saying the same thing, right? We have to focus. And then you go into, it's not about, this is a year, fellas, where it's not about doing more. It's not necessarily about adding more to do more transactions. It's actually doing less. It's the word that was coined in 1938 by my mentor's mentor. So my mentor was a guy named Mike Vance. I'm sure you guys have heard my dad talk about him. One of his mentors was Buckminster Fuller. Buckminster Fuller created the geodesic dome that we know in Orlando, right, in Disney, and 1,000 other discoveries that this guy made. Back in 1938, he coined the phrase ephemeralization. And what he said is, in 1938, he said, with the advancements in technology, we will eventually get to a place where more and more is done with less and less, and eventually everything is done with nothing. So the argument that I'm making for people is, what can you no longer afford to do? What do you need to stop doing? What are the old habits and the old plays that you've run for 3 years, 5 years, 7 years, a decade that no longer apply in this marketplace? So I always look first to say, what can we remove to simplify?
Yeah.
Then it's really about adding, John, maybe 1 lead pillar. And we all know there's 35 different ways to attract sellers. Which one has the biggest TAM? Which one are you the most comfortable with? Which one do you really understand the consumer, what their pain points are, how they operate, what they're thinking, right? And then can you market effectively to that group, whether it's over the phone, knocking on their door, sending them a video, whatever it may be. There's a million different ways for us to communicate our message. It's stuff like that. And the first 3 we did in LA, Orange County, San Diego, in every case I bring in at every event 2 or 3 of my top clients. So in LA, I had, John Grauman, $750 million in volume last year. And then I had, David and James from $1 Million Listing, them talking about their strategy around the listing appointment and how they do it and what they do. Lydia Gable from the Valley talking about, hey, I do these seller seminars. And then she broke down the seller seminar and she's like, I get, 15 to 20 sellers in my community twice a month. Yeah. Hand raisers. We're thinking about selling our home. So I basically will demonstrate, hey, here's 3 different people getting up and sharing, peers, guys, like you guys saying, hey, come speak, at my event in New Jersey, right, as an example. Then we break for lunch. Then we come back, and David Childers, we all know from Keeping Current Matters. And if you guys know Keeping Current Matters, I have been a fan from Steve Harney from Long Island through today with, Bill running the company and David as the president. But what I forced them to do at this event was, you guys always talk national, go local. Right? So this event, they go, hey, here's what's happening nationally. Here's how it relates to Northern New Jersey. Here's how it relates to Hoboken. Here's what's going on in New York City. And you want to watch, 500 to 1,000 people sit there with their phone going, click, 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 just taking photos.
Yeah.
Right? Then we spend the entire afternoon on 5 listing attraction campaigns we know work. 1 email that when they send it in the room, they will get listing opportunities. What are the best direct mail pieces today? What are the best phone scripts today for past clients and others? So it's an action-packed day. Sorry, that felt like an infomercial. I apologize. It's a cool event. It's a cool event. I like it.
You had noted, and you went into it a little bit there, that of course our most valuable resource is our time, right? In a recent Instagram post I wrote here, you said agents can't afford to run plays that don't work, and a lot of our routines need to be documented. And you went into that a little bit. Can you go a little bit deeper? For example, how we're working with buyers, handling open houses, all of these routines that we, do on a daily basis, documenting them and moving forward.
Okay, so you're going one way on focus, and then another way into sort of like detailed prescriptive stuff on open houses. Let me back up, and I'll just remind everybody of the following. So first thing I would say to you is there's 168 hours every single week. 168 hours, right? 52 times. If you go from 168, you minus out 56. I hope the person you watching right now or wherever you're listening to this, I hope you are getting 8 hours of sleep. If you study health and vitality, the one thing above anything else, if you want to live a long time and have a healthy brain, you've got to get rest. So you got 56 hours of sleep. That leaves you guys 112 hours. And sort of the message, John, that I say to everybody, I don't care, brand new agent, you guys at your level, one of my personal clients who, he did $1.7 billion in sales last year on his team. Like, it's a good business, call it $35 million in commissions. I'm like, look, man, in 112 hours, you can't get me 2 listing appointments. Like, that's where I start. Then I ask, hey, what are the best plays that you run to generate appointments? Where do your appointments come from? They're like, well, this year, hey, the last 12 months mostly came from my database. Great. What plays do you run with your database? And is it your entire database, or is it your past clients? Is it your past clients that did something with you since the pandemic? Because that's a different cohort of buyers than, say, somebody that bought from you in 2012 to 19. As an example, what plays do you run? I don't know, coach. What do you recommend? You with me? So the first thing I would say to the person listening is, if you haven't taken the time to document the shit you do that works, right? Like, think about, like, do you guys have kids?
No.
Okay. You're familiar with the concept?
Yep.
Vaguely.
Okay. Vaguely. All right. Well, it's a private coaching session just on that one. So my older son was a football player in high school, and his coach, so he played all 3 ways, small liberal arts school. And the coach had a playbook that was probably no bigger than this. But for a bunch of high school kids and you're playing all 3 ways, he was like, look, man, when the defense, when we're on a first down situation, it's this. When it's second down, it's this. When we're on third down, it's this. And then when the punt team, it's that. Right? And there's 50 different variations that they have to learn at a high school level if you want to perform well. Same thing on offense, same thing on special teams. And yet I know agents, when I say, what is the play that you run that works with email? They go, I don't know. I go, do you know the single most important time to send an email? I don't know. Do you know the highest number of active users on Zillow currently is between 4 o'clock and 8 o'clock on Sundays? When might you send that email that says, hey, we just took this listing, or hey, I've got 3 pocket listings, etc.? You guys with me on this?
Yep.
So I mean, if we were to document every play that worked right now, we would have to be on this podcast for about 9 days.
Right.
The argument I would make for the listener is, what do you do that works? When you do an open house, what do you do before the open house to prepare? What do you do before the open house to make sure it's full? Who do you want it full with? Do you door knock the entire community? Do you send out a voicemail blast message to every one of the homeowners saying, hey, Tom Ferry, Banana Real Estate, just listed 1234 Banana Street, right down the street from you. I'd love for you to come by, take a look at the home before it goes live to the public between 11:30 and 1 o'clock. And by the way, we're going to celebrate and have lunch, and the sellers are going to be there. So, let me know if you're going to come by. Just send me a text at 554-1212, right? Yeah. And that voicemail goes out to every one of the homeowners, right? Like, what do you do before the open house? What does the average agent do before the open house? They wake up on Sunday, slightly hungover, and they're like, oh, I got an open house. An open house is one of the best marketing campaigns you could run. So what do you do before? What do you do at? What's at the open house? Do the flags all go this way in front of the door? Is there signage? Do you make them sign in? Do you make them not sign in? Is there a QR code on the door that says, please register before you enter? And they just, boom, automatically, now you've captured all their information. What are the questions that you ask? Right? Hey guys, what brought you here? Hey, where do you guys currently live? Just what are the questions that you ask to build rapport, to connect? What do you do when there's like 15 people bull rushing the open house? As soon as you walk in, who gets your attention? Who gets your focus? Who's your backup? How do you organize it? And then you all know what after the open house, because that's where all the money is.
Yeah.
So I think the agent listening, if they could take some time to just say on a whiteboard, all right, I got my past clients and centers of influence. I got email, I got phone call, I got social, I got events. What do I do that works?
Yeah.
You guys with me?
Yeah.
Okay, follow up. 65% of all transactions from, like real transactions, John, you're with me on this. 65% come. So let's say you meet 100 people in January, right? Only 8% of them are going to do something in January. Like the 8% that are actually going to buy a house. You with me? Only 8%. So let's say it's 10, right? 10 buy a house, only 8%. But then the next month, 27% convert between month 2 and 3, assuming you're good with your follow-up. And then 65% of that cohort of buyers or sellers generated that month will transact with you in month 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, etc. What are your long-term nurture plans for sellers? What are your long-term nurture plays for buyers? Like, we really have to break it down in detail. And this is where I get people to start to realize I might not need any new ideas.
Yeah.
You guys with me on this?
Just a different approach or strategy.
Yeah. I mean, I see your book right there, Traction, right? Gino Wickman.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, in his book, he refers to it as SOP, right? Standard operating procedure.
100%. 100%.
But why do you think it is, though, Tom, that people sometimes are in the business 3, 4, 5 years before they realize, hey, I'm actually running a business? Is it that we're all just constantly trying to chase that next deal?
Again, fellas, the entire industry is a third, right? So there's a third of the people that aren't trying to chase deals. Yeah. They're not even active. This is a hobby.
Yeah.
And I'm not busting their chops. For the vast majority of them, I wish they would just join a team, right? Because what they really need is structure and systems and process and shifts in their identity and shifts in their behavior. That's what they need. A third of the agents sell a house now and then, and they don't even think that they're in business. And then you guys know it's about a third of the industry. You know, I actually look at it like Spencer Raskoff and I have been friends for a long time. Greg Schwartz, guys were, the early guys at Zillow. We always talk about there's only about 400,000 agents in the US, and that group does the vast majority of all the transactions. So I think that group very quickly, John, I think they realize it. Now, they may not realize it at your level. They may not realize it as, other people's level, but they understand, like, this is a business. I have an LLC, S Corp, C Corp, whatever it may be. I've got payroll, I've got HR responsibilities, I've got marketing, I've got a budget. And you and I both know, we all know, like, KIRO, that's all at various levels, right? But when you get to the top, the very top, the top 5%, the top 1%, like my clients in the Wall Street Journal, top 1,000 in my partnership with Real Trends, right? You get into that group, the vast majority of them, like, they're running a machine. And again, all at various levels. Some as effective as, Elon Musk building Teslas, and some probably look a little more like Lucille Ball and Ethel in the chocolate factory, right? Leads coming down the conveyor belt and they're eating some because they don't have proper follow-up skills.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think whether it's that book, whether it's Traction, whether it's 4 Disciplines of Execution, whether it's Measure What Matters, whether it's Managing by Harold Janine, they all say the same thing.
Yeah.
Have no more than 3 goals. Know the numbers required to get there. Score boredom, track and measure so you know where you stand, and have a regular cadence of conversation or accountability around producing results.
Yeah.
They all say the same thing, and I've read every one of those books, 15 times over.
Amen. Price Pratchett wrote a book called U Squared. Tom, have you read that book before?
Man, I think I'm probably personally responsible for, buying 1,000 and probably selling a couple 100,000. My brother, who I know you guys interviewed on your show, Matthew and I fell in love with Price Pratchett like back in like the early 90s. And that book, U Squared, specifically about creating quantum leaps in your performance, right? And whether you read, the Slight Edge, which is probably the more simplified version, like here's the process behind it, where U Squared was very much sort of, you had to imagine what could that look like.
Yep.
But yeah, phenomenal book. Why do you ask?
The reason why I ask is my hallucination is that based on what you've been saying in me, like absorbing your content, you're very innovative and you're always looking for the opportunity in the marketplace to consistently track and adapt, and that's such a hard thing to do when you're going up to different levels without being able to think big and having big exposure. Right. With kind of being stuck in the routines of people in survival mode, right? When they're trying to be on the phone and constantly make calls.
Right.
You said earlier, it's not about working harder, it's about working less and kind of delegating. What is like the top things that people should actually focus on mastering to be able to take advantage of what you're basically saying and learning how to delegate, work on what matters more than removing the things that don't? So that way, what was working for them last year isn't going to work for them this year, right? They need to change.
Yeah. So KIRO, I want to be clear. Like, I didn't say work less.
Mm-hmm. Work different.
I said more and more with less and less.
More and more with less and less.
Be more effective, be more efficient. So I would say to you guys that at the most basic level, like if I could wave a magic wand and someone said to me, like, how do I become successful? I say, well, look, at the end of the day, it is people rarely achieve their ambitions. They always seem to do exactly what their standard for money, standard for transactions. They always seem to do the structure that they have in place, You know, do you wake up in the morning and go to the gym because you got a trainer? Or do you wake up in the morning and go to the gym because you just have that discipline? Or do you wake up in the morning and sleep in? Right? We always fall back to our systems, our structure, and our standards. Those three things. So what I tell people is, look, there is no fast way to change all those things. So you have to build a schedule and then structure around the schedule that's going to bend your reality, your view of the world, what you think is possible. So I say, you know, what's your morning routine? Like, do you get cold? Do you do oxygen? Like, what do you pray? Do you meditate? Do you go for the gym? Do you do something, right? Everyone's got a morning routine. The question is, does it slingshot you into the day, or does it just kind of, the whole day goes that way?
Yeah.
Then I say, when you get to the office, what's your morning routine? How much time do you spend looking for correlations on pricing across all the various product in your marketplace? Duplexes, fourplexes, triplexes, SFRs, 2-story versus single story, condo, two bedroom, one bath, you know, like looking for correlations on pricing, right? So when people say, how's the market? You can actually have an intelligent conversation about the specific part of the market they may be interested in. By the way, you guys know what the script is when people ask you, how's the market?
Please share.
Which area of the market are you talking about? Are you interested in?
Let me go different. So John, the market's interesting. Why do you ask?
I like that.
And the market's interesting, right or wrong, guys.
Yep.
Yeah.
You list one house, you get 11 offers. You list another house, it's a sleeper and gets nothing. The market's really interesting right now. We're seeing massive early buyer demand. Here we are, you know, in February as we're filming this, we're seeing massive early buyer demand. We saw a 32% lift in purchase mortgage applications from, you know, November, December to boom, out of the gate in January. One could argue that the market is bananas right now, but the average consumer is not going to know what that means.
Right.
Yeah.
So, you know, the market's pretty interesting. Why do you ask? No, just kind of generally curious just about pricing, your home, or just the overall market. Right? I think we just need to ask better questions. And then if you study the correlations of the market every day, KIRO, you are the rock star. You're the most interesting person at the cocktail party, because you're not just saying the market's great and you're not saying the market's shitty, right? You can speak to the micro blip of REOs that are happening in the US right now, but you can also say, well, did you know, or has anybody taken the time to tell you that we've averaged over 200,000 REOs per quarter for 25 straight years, except during the 7, 8, 9, 10, you know, real estate recession.
Yeah.
Right. So let me share with you what's going on today. So 1 is your morning routine. 2 is your business routine. You get there, you look at the correlations, and then what do? You don't prospect. Prospecting is what dirty old men did by a river outside of San Francisco trying to find gold. You know what we do? We have conversations that are meaningful, and we schedule appointments. And I tell people, if you don't have time to have 10 meaningful conversations with people in and outside of your database every single day, whether it's 10 or 20, you know, you guys decide. But if you don't have time for that, you're a hobbyist.
Yeah.
You with me? You're making other things a priority. Of those 10, what you're going to find is 5 of them are interested, want to go deeper, want to have a more meaningful conversation. And from that, you're going to generate 2 pieces of business. Not that they're going to close KIRO tomorrow, but they're going to say, you know, my mother-in-law, you know, she's getting older. We're kind of thinking about, right? They don't just give it up. Hey, you know, maybe a year, maybe 2 years. But I would argue every one of those meaningful conversations is going to lead to 2 pieces of business. That's what the data tells us. And from those 2 pieces of business, whether it's now, 60 days, 100 days, 5 years from now, it doesn't make a difference. These are your clients.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
So my whole thing is conversations and appointments. If you can't schedule an appointment every day in this business, are you in this business?
That's a good question.
What is your business? Are you in the business of lunch? Or are you in the business of helping buyers and sellers, helping investors make good decisions, right? I'd rather you go on 3 right now listing appointments for people that want to list their home in the spring. I'd rather you be on 3 of those this week than just hanging out of the office. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Couldn't agree more.
Absolutely. In closing, I know you have an appointment or a coaching call in a couple of seconds. In regards to mindset and people who are struggling with that mindset as the market shifts, what are some 1 or 2 things that they should focus on? And I would just love to preface that, you know, Tom, you helped build the MFO business from a $3 million revenue to $45 million in 13 years. And then in your 3rd year starting Tom Ferry, you hit a $10 million revenue, which is it's crazy. And you were on your own doing that. The mindset struggle you had to go through at that point in time is insane. So what did you do to overcome that? And what would you recommend to an agent to do to overcome the struggles of the market today?
In 20 seconds or less.
So I'm going to keep it super real. You ready?
Please.
No one gives a shit. No one gives a shit. So you're having a bad day? No one gives a shit. You didn't sleep well? No one gives a shit. No one's thinking about you. You're the only one that's thinking about you. And the question is, what are you thinking about you? What I've learned is to be a winner in anything, as a husband of 30 years to the same woman, to as a dad, as a CEO, as an entrepreneur, as an investor, as a friend, as a golfer, like everything that I do, winning is nasty, it's dirty, it's ugly, and the better you get, the more lonely it gets.
Yep.
So if you're sitting around right now in this environment with $120 billion in real estate commissions available, and you're thinking about yourself, that's the problem. What are the problems that customers have in your marketplace? Who has real problems in your market? How many homeless people are in your town? How many kids tonight aren't going to eat? How many kids only get their square meals from going to school every day? And you're worried about prospecting? Screw you.
I love that. Tom, you're absolutely incredible. Thank you so much. And we are so grateful for you taking part of your non-refundables here with us.
Yep, I appreciate you guys. I'll see you in Jersey at Roadmap.
Sounds good. We're going to put the link to
there.
the events and everything in here. And again, thank you so much for your time. Is there anything that you want to share with the audience? Something you're working on, or?
I gotta go work on a coaching session.
Yeah, right.
You guys are awesome. Hey, thank you for
Tom.
allowing me to contribute.
Thank
See
you
guys
so
soon.
much.
All right.
Take care.